can't remember how I heard about it, but somebody told me there was a gay bar, and I thought, well, I should go there. This is a chance I'm going to meet people, and really nervous. And I remember standing outside on the opposite side of the street on my own, just plucking up the courage to go in there, because I knew that as soon as I go in there, I'd have to do something, and I'd have to speak to someone, or something might happen. So I think I stood outside for about an hour before I did.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, a podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. Joseph Segaran is a British artist living and working in Amsterdam, and whose art is inspired by the architecture of the city. So if you can picture those skinny, long buildings in the middle of Amsterdam, he draws these amazing line drawings of them, really capturing that kind of rickety spirit of the town. But before he lived in Amsterdam, he grew up in York, which is a small city in the north of England. We caught up to talk about the Bay Horse, a provincial bar, which was the very first gay venue he ever went to. Let's talk about that friend group.
Yes.
Now, in those small town friend groups, well, actually really in any friend groups when it comes to typical men. Oh, I can't believe I just said typical men. That's very, very judgmental of me. But there's a level of incestuousness.
Yes, definitely.
Did you experience that?
Luckily, I didn't dive too deep myself into that group. That I just kept it at one encounter with one person. But yes, I always thought it was a complex group, because actually there was let's call him Dad, Ian, and actually one of the people that I hung out with a lot was his youngest daughter, and she was only 13 or 14 at the time, so ridiculously young, but I think. And she used to come out on the weekends with us. So that was one thing. Kind of the fact that she knew exactly what was going on with all the different people, and she was much more well educated in the gay scene than I was.
But wait, so she was actually the biological daughter of someone? Biological
daughter, yeah.
Oh wow,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think he had about 4 children, biological children, and then he had a house, and I think on and off different people lived there, and so they lived in various small villages around York. So they weren't from York themselves, and they worked on the market, the mobile phone market stall in York, most of them. So very different to any other friends I had at that time. And it was definitely, I think everyone within that group had slept with everybody else at some point. And especially when I was first going there, if my eyes met with someone across the bar, or I thought, oh, hello, who's this? Everybody in that group knew him or somebody. So I was a little bit late to the game.
Oh, did that scupper any romantic opportunities?
It didn't. I think my advantage was I also made friends outside of that group, and they played the worst music ever. It was a mix of kind of chart music and whatever dodgy R&B music was in 2002.
Oh, was that garage music?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
amazing.
I mean, back then, that was not the reason I was going to this place. It was kind of I was going to start complaining about the music, but I like to dance. So on the weekend, I danced all night long on that dance floor with anybody who'd have me, basically. But it was terrible. It was almost as if it was just a CD, because a song would be playing and you could pretty much guarantee that you knew what the next song was going to be.
So not much imagination from the DJ.
No, it's terrible. But I hear certain songs, and it takes me right back there. I can't think of one right now. One in particular is Britney Spears' "Toxic." They loved that. And if you ever hear that, I'm taken straight back to the dance floor.
So I feel like you're dodging away from my questions about incestuousness.
Incestuous, yes.
Is there a reason? Is there some gossip that you're reluctant to share?
I mean, I don't know if I can say much without it just kind of saying like gossip, and I would say, well, he slept with him and he slept with him.
There is something like kind of fun about working out who slept with who and like how it all links back to each other. A bit like a queer family tree or something. Yeah, so were there ever any times when you met someone and were interested in them and then found out that they slept with a good friend and that they were actually off limits because of that? Now
you've dug deep enough that you have reminded me of a very traumatic experience. So I met I think one of the first times I was there, I met a guy, and he really wanted to come back to my place, but there was no way that was going to happen. So I still lived at home. But thinking back now, that was because he lived. Because if he didn't, I'd have to either get a lift back or get a taxi for half an hour. But no, so I did have a one night, one off thing. But then he was very intense, and I think I remember. I guess people send text messages in those days. Yeah. So,
and you had to limit their characters you used.
I think intense in text messages is maybe just 2 text messages after you meet someone, rather than a series of but it was really just kind of like diving into a world I didn't know anything about, and I remember thinking, well, I don't really like this guy in that way, but we had fun and we had a chat. So I had no idea that it was even a possibility to tell someone you'd slept with that you could just to be friends. And I remember that being incredibly difficult. And then later realizing that anybody who walks through those doors and is new has probably slept with this guy. But there was one point I met. There was a guy. Actually, I think I'd been chatting to him online back then. It was MSN chats you had.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So I mean, well, we should talk about that. That was a great world. That was. But I'd been speaking to a guy, and we met, and then we went together to the Bay Horse. It was a night out, but I think he ended up going home with my friend, and it was traumatizing. It's heartbreaking. I felt so betrayed, because I thought we were going on a date.
But so let's just take it back, like just one step, and talk about MSN Messenger. So jog my memory. If you were chatting to someone on there, did you see a picture of them?
No, I don't. No, definitely no. In fact, definitely not.
Isn't that so weird?
I've just realised I may have called it the wrong thing. So, MSN had chat rooms, and then there was Messenger, which was a kind of I guess it was like WhatsApp, but on a computer. But you had these chat rooms powered by MSN, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember. I used to go, and I don't know how I discovered this, but I discovered this, I think I was about 14, 15, and you could go into these chat rooms, and they would just be these generic chat rooms where everyone was chatting in a big group, and then you could privately talk to people. And I think I used to just do that. And there was a girl at school who had had a computer too. So we would say at school, "Oh, I am at 7 o'clock. I'm going to go on to MSN," and we would just chat with each other. And then sometimes we'd say silly things in the room and laugh about it. And it was immature. But at some point, I realized I discovered there was a specific one just for gay people. I think it was a UK-based one, but maybe it was a world-based one. And there were probably only 20 people at one given time chatting, but none of them would be from York.
Mm-hmm.
So you chat, and that was back when people used to say, what was it? ASL.
Oh.
And that was enough information to get them interested in you. So you'd say I'm 17, I'm male, and I live in York, and they just have to deal with that kind of information. Which seems almost impossible in this day and age.
Yeah, when like you're supposed to give all of that information even before you start.
Yeah, you need a CV, and if you, but no. So at some point that progressed to. I mean, that's how I met somebody for the first time. Was via that, but I do remember. I don't know if that was when I first used that, but at some point, if you did want to see a picture, then you'd have to give them your email address and they could email a photograph to you.
And so is that what happened with this guy that you went on the date with?
Yes, definitely seen a photograph.
And to who, like, I mean, you know, don't tell me his name or anything, but who was he? Was he your age? Was he?
No, he was slightly older. And I remember kind of connecting on an intellectual level, kind of just, so we used to chat online such a long time and about all sorts of stuff. So I think I'd kind of fallen in love with him in the way you when you're 17. But long story short, he ended up in a long-term relationship with this guy, with my friends. So I had to forgive them because I brought them together. Sadly, they split up. So it wasn't happily ever after forever. But I think they were together for 7 or 8 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was getting, because, you know, sometimes if your friend hooks up with the person you like, you just have to wait a few weeks and then they're like around again. But
Yeah.
not to be in this case. But it's fascinating that mindset that you're talking about when you're 17 and every single person is the one. And if you sleep with them, that means, oh my God, I must be going steady with you.
Yeah, I definitely went through. In fact, actually, not. I'm thinking. I wonder if I remember he sent me emails, and I found them really profound at the time, and I'm hoping I've saved them somewhere. But
read some of them out. Read some of them out to me.
I was thinking, but I remember them really well, and I did write them down somewhere. Just thinking, where are they? Where are they? But I think why I chose to bay a horse and kind of thinking back on kind of exploring your sexuality and coming out and all these kind of things is that it was a space of about 1.5 to 2 years where there were so many different things going on. I was getting ready to go to university. I was doing my A-levels. I was coming out of the closet. I was having sex for the first time. And then also because they always seemed much more interesting because their conversations weren't about school. They were about something else. And I really enjoyed that. But like you said, when you're 17, you more or less thought anybody who would have a decent conversation with me, that was some kind of love. And I would think, oh, they love me. And then if you slept with them, that was the kind of confirmation. Yeah. So we can have a nice conversation. We slept together. That's it. Why don't they love me? So I used to get very upset when it turned out it was just a one-off thing or casual. People didn't want a relationship because when I was 17, all I wanted more than anything in the world was somebody to love me. Yeah, it's very sweet.
I remember lots of people when I was, first coming out and stuff who would be like, yeah, I'm not going to tell my parents that I'm gay until I'm in a long-term relationship because I want them to know that I'm going to be okay. And there's something interesting about that logic. Like, there's something about it that I agree with. But then at the same time, like, I knew some people that were waiting for years and years and still were not in a position to tell their parents because they hadn't met anyone to be in a long-term relationship with.
It's interesting you say that, because actually now that you say that, I realise that is very much how I felt and feel with regard to my mum, probably my dad as well, but to a larger extent, my mother. I think it was easy enough coming up to my parents, but I think I know for a fact that was one of my mum's biggest worries. Kind of, will he be okay? Will anybody ever love him? And will he catch things, or will terrible things happen to him, or prejudice and blah blah blah? But I think probably deep in my mind, I was thinking, I can't come out into my parents until I can prove to them that I can have a loving relationship just like anybody else.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think that was definitely back in the back of my mind.
But you didn't wait until then, did you?
I didn't. No.
Oh, okay. So you didn't sleep with a guy one time and then bring him home and be like, "Hello, got something to tell you."
Exactly. No, that's not how. Although it's very similar, and I think you'll like the story, so I'll tell you. Because I actually came out twice to my parents.
Oh.
And the first time, I guess I was probably about 16, 17. Although there were lots of advantages of MSN chat, there were disadvantages in that shared family computer that we had. So I didn't know about, I guess, I don't know if cookies existed then, but browse history definitely did. So my dad or my mum just saw in the history or the trash or something that I'd been talking to people in gay chat rooms. So they confronted me.
Oh, but they didn't find your porn then? I thought that's where this was going.
Oh yeah, no, unfortunately not that exciting. No, but I think probably for most parents, but definitely for my parents, just finding that at that age that I'd been in gay chat rooms was terrifying enough. So my dad took me aside and we had a very serious conversation about young people having experimental phases and this and that, and I told my dad and he told my mum. But about a year and a half later, I had a very good friend, a girlfriend, and we did everything together. I think we were most classes together, and then we'd go into town together. And if we went out together. And my mum kind of one day just said, just be careful because I'm not ready to be a grandma yet. I was thinking, what do you mean? I thought like you found out and I didn't have to do any work and actually come out, and they just passed it off as a little phase, and turned out I had to do it again and say no, that little phase, that's a real thing and I really am gay.
Oh no.
I think I don't know. I think they were really supportive. I can't complain, but I think it gave my mum lots of unnecessary worry about how things would turn out for me. I think the second time was worse because they realised it wasn't a little phase, but it was. Really, yeah.
Oh, that's so you were going through life merrily thinking, "Oh, phew, I've done that. I've covered that off. Told them it's not been a big deal. It's fine." And then you had to do it again, and it was.
Yeah. In the meantime, it was relatively painless. I think 60% of my friends said, "Oh, I knew that already," and the other ones said, "Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Oh, I just thought that was Joe. I thought that's how Joseph was. I just never thought, oh yeah, you're gay. Oh, that explains so many different things." And I didn't have any troubles at that point at all, actually, with friends.
Oh, I have this weird memory, it was very obvious to everyone that I was gay. And like from a very early age, people used to come up to me in the schoolyard and be like, "You're going to be gay when you grow older." But after I came out, I remember my mum saying to me, your dad was saying that when you were at the beach, you were looking really intensely at these women. So he thinks maybe it's just a phase.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I remember just being really confused. Like, which women? What was I doing? It's just like this way that parents kind of like come up with some kind of rationale reason why you're not actually gay, despite all the evidence.
Yeah, it's funny that I had that too, though much younger. I think when I was much younger, so probably like 8 or 9 at school. I'm pretty sure, I don't know whether they were called in or it was just a remark at one of the parent-teacher evenings. But more than one occasion, it was noted that I had to broaden my friend group because I only hung around with them. That was a bigger concern for teachers at those times.
Oh
and looking back, probably the teacher's way of saying, "Oh, by the way, I think your son's gay."
Can you imagine, though? I've got some feedback for you. Your kids' friends are all the wrong gender.
Well, I mean, I'm not joking. That happened a couple of times at junior school, and actually at high school. About age 14, 15, then I hung around actually with a very small group of girls, just I think 3 or 4 girls, and we always used to sit in the same place. And one of the teachers took me aside then and actually took me into his office to tell me that he'd noticed that I just hung around with girls and I had to snap out of it, change my attitude, change my lifestyle. Otherwise, it was just all going to be doom and gloom for me.
Oh, wow.
An IT teacher, Mr. Oh God, I can't remember his name. Mr. Spencer.
And like, how did you respond?
Well, I never forgot it because I think he saw that before I think I really had worked out it myself. And also I think every now and then some older boy at school would call me gay or a pufter.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know what that meant. So there were a couple of times that people are telling you you're gay before you really know that whether that's true or what that, which was kind of interesting and also really disappointing at the same time.
It's it is weird. Like I think when I realized I was gay, I'd had so many people tell me for so long that it was like, oh okay, they were right. But this whole thing that this teacher decided that they could maybe potentially prevent you from being gay by just making sure you hang out with boys. Like it's so naive. It's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember, but I mean, looking back, I was probably just terrified to talk to boys, but so that would have only made things worse. if I'd have that day decided just to be friends with boys, I think.
Boys just did like really boring things, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, at that age, it isn't a choice. It just kind of happens. I've no idea.
But you were ready to play with boys by the time you got to the Bay Horse.
Yes, definitely.
Bringing us back on. And so did you like consciously stay away from that incestuousness?
I don't know. I didn't really fit instantly into that group because most of them lived together or they lived outside of York and some of them worked together. So it was like a family. And I was saying that the Bay Horse, they had this front bit where it's funny because I can visually see it now as I'm talking about it. As you walked in the front door, immediately to the left, there was a kind of a longer table. And that was almost known to be their space. So if I went on my own and I sat there and no one was there, you'd know that within the next half an hour, someone from that group would arrive and then slowly the rest of the group would arrive. But they didn't dance. So
They didn't dance? What?
It was very much just drinking beer and talking. It's Yorkshire, remember? It's not London.
But like, what? I mean, what's the point in going out if you don't dance?
Yeah, so well, they were there to meet people, and it was a social thing. But I definitely went there the first time hoping to score or meet people. Accidentally made a network of really great and fun people. Unfortunately, I'm not in touch actually with anyone, I don't think. But no, I went there to dance, even though the music was terrible. So through doing that, I met other people, and so I think when I first went there, that was my little safety net. So because going and sitting at a bar, in a gay bar on your own as a 17-year-old is terrifying, because half the people are thinking, who's this news person? Half the people are thinking, hello, fresh meat. So that group was just really safe, because I could start my night with them, but I was pretty much a free spirit. So it didn't mean I had to sit there with them all the time. So.
But they were like your safety blanket.
I feel like you've labelled them as the incestuous group.
Well, I mean, you know, it's not like they're the only incestuous group in the world. Did you? So you mentioned before that you were the only kind of non-white person
yes.
there. Did you experience any racism or?
Not at the Bay Horse. No. Funnily enough, I don't know if that's interesting, but well, actually, I think that is interesting. I think if I think back to the Bay Horse, and that's what I was saying about the advantage of a kind of small town provincial style gay bar where there is no choice. So you can't say, oh, there aren't enough bears, or everyone's too old, or the music really, really bad. You just, if you wanted to go to a gay bar, that was your only choice. And Leeds is it half an hour, 40 minutes on the train? There you had a proper gay, I think maybe 2 gay clubs, one with cheesy pop music, and one with actually quite good music, and different club nights and bars, and a proper thriving scene. So I think a lot of people went there. But if you didn't want to or couldn't leave York, then it was your only choice. You didn't, but I don't think. Of course, there was bitching, and especially within the incestuous group. But I don't think it wasn't very judgy, and it wasn't very. I think every gay bar I've ever been into since has been much more prejudiced in all senses of the word. But I never experienced racism there. But I did in other venues in York, but not there. But then maybe kind of on the other side of the spectrum, there was that's something I've experienced, but is that you have this kind of, you don't realize it until it's too late, that some kind of that people, they're looking at you as some kind of exotic beauty from the east, something like that. Oh, you're and then just making up where you could possibly be from, because you look a little bit like some Indian boy I met a few years ago. And well, I think what I had there, but then it's not exclusively to being picked up. That's just something that always really annoyed me, is when people, and I used to always, when people said, "Oh, where are you from?" I used to explain to them my entire family history before they'd even known my name. Now I just don't do that. But I'd tell people that my dad is from Sri Lanka. And then they'd go, most people then, they think, well, I've never been to Sri Lanka. But let me tell you this story about this one time I was in India, and they kind of tell you about Indian culture, or what they learned when they were a hippie student and they went to India and they discovered themselves. And
that's exhausting. So you don't just go like, oh, I'm from York.
Yes. Yeah, I can do that. I mean, it's even more complex now that I live in Amsterdam, and people ask you where you're from. But if you say I'm from the UK, or I'm from York, or in Amsterdam, even sometimes I just say I'm from here, you get this look, which means, but where are you really from?
And then do you comply with that, or do you just?
I used to, explain. I used to say, "Oh, my dad is from Sri Lanka and my mum's English," and that's normally what they want to know. now I just kind of refuse to say, oh, I just say I'm from everywhere.
I am a child of the world. Yeah, I had this reverse thing, like when I went to Australia.
Yes.
So I was born in Scotland, but I grew up in Australia. And whenever I would meet people, I would be like, at pains to be like, oh, but actually I'm Scottish, I'm not Australian. And people would always be like, nah, you're Australian, mate.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, but I'm not. Like, no, you look like us. Well, what does that mean?
Well, you have the same thing, because I think when I first met you, you told me, and then I forgot, and then I would have to think, what was he Australian, but in the UK, or was he British and he moved to Australia when he was younger? Because he has a slight accent, and I remember you did have to tell me a couple of times before I remember. People don't ever like it when you don't fit instantly into a box that they know that they can understand.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that people are at pains to define you so quickly.
Definitely, yeah. And that it's always, people are kind of almost disappointed when you're or when you say Sri Lankan, because they can't. Well, actually, then a lot of the time, people, when I say I'm half Sri Lankan, they think, oh, that's why you look like how you look. But I think I look like my mum, who is white and British. If you see my mum and dad, I look much more like my mum. And I don't look like Sri Lankan at all. So I think that's also quite funny when people think, yes, now I get it. I can see it now.
Have you ever had someone that has then gone away and researched things about Sri Lanka in order to have a conversation with you later on?
I think I might have, actually. I can't remember. It's funny you said that, because now I'm thinking maybe I have. People have definitely searched for some information on Sri Lanka. Kind of interesting, though.
Or found something out in passing that they have to tell you, like you're interested.
I've also had the complete opposite, where I've met someone who's actually spent time in Sri Lanka and knows a lot about the current political climate at that point.
And you're like, what?
Lived with locals and can cook the food and knows places and names, and try to kind of, have you been here and here? And my dad left when he was 16.
Oh, it's fascinating. I mean, ultimately it's about them wanting to connect, isn't it? But it's a bit like, oh, sorry. Yeah, when people talk to me about Australian things that I have no idea, I'm just like, oh, I'm really sorry, I failed. So I wanted to. So in preparing for this interview, I did some research, and there was not very much about the Bay Horse online. But there was an amazing article in the York Press with the headline, "Venue Dilemma for York Gays." That was about the place closing.
Oh, gosh.
Do you remember hearing about the place closing?
Well, yes, it was in my time. I experienced it.
Oh, okay.
Yes. It's a shame.
So then, do you remember hearing, before it closed, that it was going to close?
Yes, and I it was a dilemma for York gays.
Sorry to make light of it.
It's a shame I don't know, and I think I tried to look and I couldn't find. I don't know how long it had been there, but I think it had been there and had been a gay pub for a long time. And I've no idea. I've no idea about the owners, who they were. I can vaguely remember some of the bar stuff, but I wasn't really thinking about those kind of things. But it must have been a dilemma for them. I have no idea what their circumstances were. But when I first went there, I think it was 2002, and I think it closed in 2003. So it was a very short window of time. But I remember when it was closing, people saying, "Oh, we should start a bar," and I think there was a series of bars in York became gay friendly after that. and none of them very successful. And I think even now there is no officially gay bar. No. So I think I'm pretty sure there is one place which is gay friendly, and maybe it is gay bar, but I think it's more like kind of gay friendly, and it's there's very much in the city centre. So I think as a tourist you can just accidentally walk in there and not really notice. But no, I don't think since 2003 there's been anything that's replaced it for more than a couple of years. I can't remember. There was a place called the Artful Dodger, I think. So it was while I was leaving for university. I think I went to the last night ever. I think there was a big party. I'm pretty sure I was there. And then word on the town was it wasn't gay, but some gay people worked there, so we should all go to this bar. And I remember, and that it was the time I was leaving for university, so I left to go to Newcastle, where they had more than one gay bar. I remember that a kind of group went from the Bay Horse to this other place. I can't remember what it's called, but it was on Micklegates. That's all I remember. But it was a younger crowd and a trendier crowd, and it was more university student orientated. So that melting pot with all the older people, and that disappeared. I don't know where they go or where they went after that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like people talk about how, there's this whole dialogue about like, are queer bars needed anymore because people have hookup apps and people have the internet and blah, blah, blah. But for this older generation that isn't digitally native or digitally active, like what are they doing?
Yeah. I mean, and I'm talking about, oh my gosh, nearly 20 years ago. I suddenly feel old. Yeah, so the older generation, then they weren't using chat rooms or any other ways, I think, of for that kind of social aspect, for the social aspect.
But even people who were like 40 then, who like would be in the like 60 now, who could still be going out, like what, like there is no place to go.
Yeah, it's actually really sad, and it's weird because then after that, going to Newcastle and living now in Amsterdam and being kind of spoilt with a different bar for your every needs, and if you don't ever want to see a bear or a twink, then you don't have to. You can just go to the special designated bars, and then you can
the no bears bar.
And then kind of like you like do a special hair test on the way in. But then you can understand that people question the need for these kind of places. But it was almost accidentally a kind of a social club as well as being a gay bar. I always find I find them. So whether you're talking about something like Grindr or Scruff, a very old-fashioned provincial town pub or a big gay club or gaydar or MSN, all these different kind of ways of meeting people. On the one hand, it's extremely handy when you're looking for sex and you want to hook up with people and this kind of stuff. But they're also, I've always found them amazing and fascinating places for networking, kind of like basically social media, but for gay people.
Like to get your business ahead, is that what you're...
Oh, yeah, well, no, that's also possible. No, but I've met people because thinking back to 2006 when I moved to Amsterdam, that I didn't know anyone, and just the ease of gaydar, because I'd used that before, it meant that I didn't then in Amsterdam have to do that terrifying thing of going. I would have found that just as terrifying as I did when I was 17, going into a gay bar in Amsterdam on my own to meet someone, or just to kind of just to see if I could meet someone. I didn't do that. It was terrifying. So I chatted to different people. I was chatting to some people, and then they'd say, "Well, do you want to meet for a drink?" And you'd meet for a drink. So that's just a small. So that's only 3 years later, but it was an incredible tool for taking away that edge of having to go to a physical place
But there is still something like I mean I probably can't speak very much for the heterosexual experience, but there is something great about being like going to a queer bar on your own and not having that social stigma of being on your own.
Yeah, definitely. I would think I can't imagine it now. I mean, I can remember the fear that I used to have, but also the excitement because you don't know what the possibilities of the night. But I think for me, it always made it easier. But it's definitely much more exciting to go to be in a bar, and you first of all you're there for a drink or a dance or a good time, and then anything else is extra. Well, that's brilliant.
Mm. Yeah, because the downside of talking to someone online and then meeting them for a drink is if they're boring, you're lumbered with them for quite a good amount of time, unless you're very good at saying, "Do you know what? This isn't right for me. See ya."
I think I may have perfected that art back in the day.
Ah.
I can't remember. I can't remember what the technique was, but I think thinking back to when I moved to Amsterdam, I think I may have met people, but maybe I tried to keep it cool and ambiguous, kind of in the reason we were meeting, so that you could kind of meet for a drink, and then. But actually, that's another thing. Amsterdam spoilt me. There were years in between the Bay Horse days and Amsterdam because my university there, so that's different. Kind of doing a fine arts course, and I hung around with lots of drama students. There were different ways to meet people, and there was a proper gay scene.
Mhm.
But so it was fine. But being in Amsterdam, that was my first experience of living in a city that if you met someone for a drink in one bar, you could say, "Well, let's call it a night." Go two doors down and start drinking the next gay bar on your own. I think I've probably done that. Have you not?
Well, I mean, no, because I think, like, going back to what we were talking about before, I used to get so caught up in the romance or the ability my imagination had to fill in the blanks for people that I was talking to online, that I would put a lot of stock into them as a person, and like, totally unrealistic expectations. I know it's totally on me. And then whenever I would meet them, I'd be like, "Oh, you're not that interesting."
Yeah.
And then I would spend the whole night trying to like see another side of them, or to bring them out of their shell, or to like connect in the way that I thought we connected when we were talking online,
Yeah.
which is why I stopped dating, really.
Yeah. Oh, is that true? You stopped dating?
It was exhausting. I would just like the idea of going on a date. Oh, it's
Yeah.
horrible.
Oh, yeah. It is. And if only it would happen more often. But if I think back to days of being single, then if you think back to kind of think like, oh, isn't it so romantic that you look up your phone and there happens to be somebody 600 meters away, and then you send them a tap or a woof or whatever you send them. I mean, it's very unromantic. And eyes meeting across a bar or actually in the street, or kind of and that kind of excitement, because you don't know, well, there's some kind of connection, but you don't know where it's going. Or that's the best way to meet someone. Nothing can beat that.
And the last time I was in Amsterdam, I was walking back from a club like late at night, and this guy cycled past me and then stopped. And then we made out for like 5 minutes. And then I was like, "Oh, it's really late. I have to go." And that was it. That was our encounter. It was really nice.
I've had several encounters like that, actually. I have, yeah. And it's kind of weird. You don't forget those, I don't think, just because of the way it happened.
Oh, yeah. It definitely stays in the mind more.
I've had a similar Amsterdam one where I was actually also on a bike, and late at night, and kind of we spent a little bit of our journey home overtaking each other and kind of trying to look. And it was really weird because I was thinking, is this guy flirt bicycle riding with me? And he was, and I thought he was, so I thought I better see if I can overtake him. And at some point we just slowed down to the same speed, and he said, "Hi, how are you doing?" or something like that. And it's great.
And then you fell over and broke both your arms.
No, then he came back to me. And I also remember a time in Newcastle, sitting on the metro, going home from university after a long day. It was a full metro, and just seeing a guy sitting on the other row of seats, and then kind of having eye contact, getting to my stop just to where I live, and he was also getting on. It was also kind of a weird, is he following me? Are we looking at each other? And he was, and we kind of had a little fumble under the bridge and then went our separate ways. So random.
Fumble under the bridge. Yes, it's so much more romantic, isn't it?
Yeah. So that the act part is really boring, really disappointing. But there's something very exciting about that in the moment, meeting someone.
Are you good at picking up on that? Because I have never been good, and I think maybe it's like this fear of like homophobia or something, being like subjected to someone being like, "Hang on, I'm not flirting with you, fuck you." But I've never ever been good at that.
Yes, I think so. And I think another thing is I'm pretty shy, and I think as I get older, I get less and less able to talk to anybody I don't know. I'm always like when somebody comes to deliver something, or the plumber comes, I'm just absolutely petrified and have no idea what to say. But I think when I was younger, I didn't. I'll just talk to anyone. But I think just by nature, I tend to, I like watching people. I like people watching, so I'm always looking. I think I'm more often obviously looking at someone than they are obviously looking at me. And so it's a case of, I don't have to, the signals are pretty obvious if they're looking back and not think with an expression of, what is that guy looking at? So I think I can read those signals pretty well. It's funny because you said about homophobic, and of course that is a possibility, that you think someone's eyeing you up and you're kind of flirting, and then it turns out that they're actually thinking, is that guy gay? I'm going to beat him up so that could end nastily. But when I met my now husband, we met.
Oh, is that weird to say, by the way?
It is quite weird. I don't say it often, but I do notice that I quite enjoy saying it.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll say it again. When you met,
so when I met my husband, we met actually through an app. Unfortunately, not romantically across the ballroom floor, but we met via an app, and he said, "Oh, come over, blah blah blah, this time, and this is where I live," and we arranged that I was going to come over, and it wasn't my first time going to someone's house for a date, but suddenly had, for the first time ever in my whole life, this terrible, terrifying feeling. Maybe it was because, when was this, 6 years ago, maybe there'd been more talk of this in the media about people meeting on an app and then getting beaten up. I suddenly had this idea that when I got there, I thought, the door's going to open and there's going to be a group of young thugs and they're going to pull me in and beat me to death. And I was absolutely terrified. And when I got to his house, there was a kind of porch and you had to go up some stairs and the light didn't work, so it was pitch black. And I'll never forget that feeling because it was absolutely terrifying. And then the door opened and he was like, "Hi, come in."
And that feeling was love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then I forgot about it, but I've never had that. Yeah, I suddenly thought, oh, imagine that. That's terrible that happens. It's kind of.
But it didn't stop you though. Not to make light of that happening. Sorry.
It's fine. I probably had in the back of my head kind of, I'll take a step back, and if the door opens and it's suspicious, I'll just run like the wind. But not.
So we've gone way off topic.
We have, yeah. I don't know where we went. Yeah. Oh, I could have a quick look and see if I have that email.
Oh, yes.
I think I know where it is. If you bear with me.
Okay.
This is the advantage of my years in a bookshop. I file everything exactly where I want it to be so that I can find it at the drop of a hat.
Ooh, that's a handy attribute.
Yeah. I think outside of this, I think one day I'll just have to take some photographs of some of my old diaries, and because I know you like the raunchy and the exciting stories, and I do have some. I'm not willing to share them here, but now that I've just got this book, I'm just kind of thinking, oh yeah, I remember it. It's a kind of half diary, half sketchbook from my art school days.
Aww.
And I remember using the back of a printed out email that this guy sent me to draw a picture on the other side. And it's him explaining to me that when you fancy someone, it doesn't mean it's love.
And was this before or after you met?
After. So this is the guy that.
So is this him letting you down?
Yeah. I think I found one of two. Yeah. Just trying to work out how old I would have been. I was over in 19. It says, unfortunately, there's a big stain over half of it, so I can't read it. But it says, okay, well, I tried. I can at least say that much. It's a pity that I didn't succeed, but you can't have everything in life, can you? If you can honestly say that you could sleep with me and then move on, then I would happily admit that I got it wrong. Joe, you form emotional attachments that I don't. I understand the difference between love and sex. Can you honestly say the same thing? I would doubt it in all sincerity. The reason that I never slept with you is that I knew you would form an attachment to me. As much as we joked about it, I am a tart and I wear the label. The relationship that ended on Saturday ended because the other guy has severe emotional problems. That was the last time I opened myself to being hurt. And the fact that I loved that guy had nothing to do with you. I just couldn't deal with the problems I am having. Do I blame him for it? No, I don't. I just wish he'd talked about it to me before he made his decision. I'm going to just go a little forward. Oh, I'm done now. If you want to scream at me, that's fine. If you don't want to know me, that's fine also. If, however, you think that you may still have some spark of friendship for me, but don't want to say anything because your pride is getting in the way, then I don't want to know you. And then he ends it with, Joe, I value our friendship, and I wouldn't do this if I didn't. Very dramatic. I don't know how old he was. I mean, I think he was about 30 when he wrote this.
Oh, God. Oh, no. I was going to say, like, if he was 18, I could forgive it. But so the context here is that you had met once, he'd snogged someone else.
Yeah, no, the context is that we chatted for months, or probably just weeks, or maybe just days. No, we chatted.
But enough for you to form complex bonds.
Yeah, that we chatted, and that I totally fancied him. And I had seen pictures of him, even though it was in the MSN days. We met for what I thought was a date, went to the Bay Horse, introduced him to my friend group, and then never saw him all night because he went off with my best friend from that group.
Oh, heartbreaking.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't... Unfortunately, I don't have the text message, but I probably sent him a text message telling him how I thought. But I was so hurt. I can remember the hurt from back then.
Oh. Just not being able to sleep. Thinking it over in your head. And so this was him, like, what, letting you down gently, or?
Yeah, kind of. kind of explain. I mean, basically, I was kind of thinking, like, I thought we were meeting and we're going to have a nice night out, and then we're going to go back to yours. And I thought that was the kind of thing. And that's him kind of trying to explain why he had sex with my friend, because my friend understands casual sex better than I. I'm not, but I'm quite lucky that that's kind of probably the messiest love triangle or breakup type thing I've ever got myself into. My other breakups have been pretty painless, so I can't complain.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's nothing then. Oh yeah, that's good. You're lucky.
Yeah, I am lucky. Yeah.
Did you ever go to the Bay Horse? Well, if you did, tell me about it. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook with the username KAndersonMusic. Hit me up and tell me your stories. Bonus points for anyone who can share embarrassing photos, because I always love those. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I've been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, Well Groomed Boys, which is also playing underneath my talking right now on all good streaming platforms. If you liked this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on Apple Podcasts, or just told someone or multiple people who you think might be interested in having a little listen to. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.